Hello. One of my very first memories was from kindergarten. I wanted to put on a puppet show for my kindergarten class. So my dad helped me, and he made a puppet show theater box. And the day came, and I was ready. I had told stories so many times in my room, alone, to myself. And so the day came, and I got into the darkness of the box, and all the students sat around, crisscross applesauce, waiting for me to share. And when the time came, some force took over, and I got hot. I froze at the same time, and I buried my face in the corner of this puppet theater box between the walls and the floor, and I stared at this tiny dot of light that came through between the carpet and the walls, and no matter what I did, I could not get out of that corner. And I wanted to share. I wanted to share the story of a princess and a bear. But my throat was the size of that tiny dot, and I imagined my classmates laughing or looking at each other confused. And all I wanted to do was shrink myself down to the size of that dot and hide. So the day came and went without me sharing. And that puppet theater box that my dad had worked so hard on sat in the garage collecting dust, I don't know how many years, as a constant reminder of my failed storytelling attempt. So, if you had told me just a couple years ago that I'd be standing in front of you today, talking on purpose, I would have started hyperventilating. I would have clammed up. I don't even want to think about what would have happened. Okay, who understands what I'm saying? Who knows what I'm feeling? Yes, yes, yes. It's very common. I know I'm not alone, right? So, a lot has changed between then and now. Anin Buju, I'm Leah Lemm. I'm a citizen of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, and I live in Grand Rapids. And I have lived with shame and embarrassment when it comes to sharing my voice, sharing my words. So what do I do now? I host radio programs and podcasts. I'm a news editor. I talk to people for a living. Thank you so much. And I've talked to audiences of varying sizes for the past couple years, and I love it. So what changed between burying my face in a literal and figurative dark corner for most of my adult life? Well, I'll tell you what, it wasn't easy. See, silence for me was my safety. And don't get me wrong, quiet is different. I love quiet. But I had things to say. I had opinions and observations and ideas that I wanted to share with other people. But I found myself unable to in social situations, school, work, you name it. It was very difficult. So I just spent my life observing, learning, practicing my instruments, and I was fine with it. I kind of accepted it. I decided it was in my DNA, my genetic makeup, a personal failing, perhaps, that I just had to deal with. So even though I liked performing, those were other people's words, other people's notes. And saying my own words or my own music kind of opened me up to that vulnerability. So I decided to work behind the scenes in audio, connecting cables, working the boards, faders, and knobs, and watching other people's instruments, other people's voices hit the perfect levels. So I started my career in radio, in media, behind the scenes. It's a fun job. I got to learn the backbone of public media. I got to help expert voices get out to the state and the country. It's very exciting. So I spend a lot of time listening to radio, reading those news pieces and articles, hearing the sounds of Minnesotans, but not all Minnesotans. Those finely tuned observation skills I had been working on in silence kicked in. And I noticed that there were a lot of voices missing from the radio and other places, but radio is my lane. And for me, what was significant is there weren't many people that sounded like those in my family. Brilliant, academic, cultural, Ojibwe people, Native people, people of this land, this continent, these trees, these waters, and the very air through which the radio waves moved. And when I heard once in a while the native voices coming out of my speakers, I would be so excited, like, hey, they're listening to us, check it out, yeah. That was pretty rare though. So I felt something. I started to feel a stir. The agitation of discontent. Basically, I was annoyed, right? And so what I did, nervously, of course, I bought a stereo recorder and I decided to give it a try. I went down to Minneapolis to the football stadium during a Not Your Mascot rally and march and started recording folks there. Recording some of the sounds of the day, music that I heard, sounds of the crowd. And I mixed it together into a radio story, kind of rudimentary. I kept my own voice largely out of it. And I had a friend, and this was 10 years ago, I had a friend who had a community radio show down in the cities. And he said, hey, Leah, why don't we air this piece? It's fine, like it's a cool piece. Okay, why not? And so we did. It aired in the cities, and people heard it. So, quiet Leah Lemm, with a stereo recorder and a laptop, amplified native voices for people to hear. I could do it. It was realized. It was out in the world. So I decided to commit myself to that. I quit my job. I went and got an MFA in creative writing, worked in native theater, and slowly built up a portfolio of radio pieces. And don't get me wrong, I was still incredibly nervous this entire time because it was still talking to people, but I had every question written out just so in case of an emergency, in case I shut down. No problem. And so what I learned while approaching people for interviews, I was working on a program about Native voices and sharing their gifts. What I learned is that other people had the same anxiety. And these were brave people, right? Like, they were artists, singers, advocates for others. They'd help people get and stay sober, professors, people that I wouldn't expect to be nervous definitely were. And it's not for lack of wanting to share. It was a similar block, like they didn't really believe they could share what they wanted to say in a way that sounded good. I said, you know what, that's for me to worry about. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna work together. We're gonna hold space, we're not gonna rush things. So in some of these interviews, it would be take after take after take. Or we'd sit in complete silence till the words came, till the head and the heart met the voice and could come out. Or we'd talk about anything else for hours until the final moments when the story came out. You see, putting the person first as the priority allowed for the story to be a happy outcome. And what made the difference? Really, I mean, it wasn't me. Sure, I held space and created a supportive environment. But really, it was these guests' willingness to share their words and allowing their heart, their reflections, their brilliance into the light. They allowed their stories into the world. And we knew we were doing something bigger. Something that the nerves couldn't hold back. See, for so long, we're thought as being such a small part of the population, statistically insignificant, that our voices weren't a priority to others. But I refused that outlook, and it became my priority. And the feedback I got was very positive, Native and non-Native alike, hearing people's voices from unique tribal communities around Minnesota. I got support from colleagues, from family and friends and community. And really what kept me going was seeing those moments of added confidence from each guest that realized they could share. And for me, what does that mean? How did that get me here? Well, as I helped each person out of their dark corner, I showed them through patience and support and time, not this rush, right? I showed them the way out. And in doing that over and over and over again, I, in turn, helped myself out of my own dark corner. And I imagine my classmates as being that supportive environment. So I really have a lot. I really owe a lot to the people that I interviewed in these past years because it helped me get here. Now, who here wanted me to do well and tell my story and feel at ease in front of you? Yeah, okay. Thank you. You just helped another person tell their story. So thank you. And if you answered earlier that you have anxiety when speaking in front of people, I get it. And also look around, like every person raised their hand. So you've just witnessed that more people will be rooting for you to do well. More people than you realize. So you're just that much closer to being up here yourself and giving your own talk. Or maybe even putting on a puppet show. Miigwech, thank you.